Debate Night 2024 is brought to you in part by League of Women Voters of Minnesota, Evolve Creative, Linda and David Holmes, and David Quam. Lakeland PBS, the Bemidji Pioneer, Brainerd Dispatch, Park Rapids Enterprise, and KAXE KBXE are proud to present Debate Night 2024, a look at our area legislative candidates. Your moderator tonight is Bethany Wesley. And now the Minnesota House District 2A debate.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first night of Debate Night 2024 at the Lakeland PBS studio in Bemidji. I'm Bethany Wesley, your moderator for tonight's debates. We're starting an exciting week of debates with the first of two state legislative debates tonight, covering topics and issues that are important to you and your communities. In our first of two debates tonight, we will hear from two candidates running to represent House District 2A. The candidates are Bidal Duran Jr. from the Republican Party, Reed Olson from the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. We have three panelists tonight asking questions of the candidates. They are Dennis Wyman, the news director of Lakeland PBS, Chelsea Perkins, the news director at KAXE KBXE Public Radio, Ashley McKenzie, local government reporter at the Bemidji Pioneer. Now, for the rules for tonight's debate. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for opening comments. The panel will then begin asking questions. Some will be their own questions, others may be from the public. Candidates will rotate the order they speak, beginning with opening comments and finishing with closing comments. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the questions. Each candidate will then have the opportunity for a 1-minute rebuttal. Candidates will have the option of using 1 minute of bonus time to add on to one of their answers tonight. This can be used during the answer to the initial question or during the rebuttal, but it can only be used once. Questions will continue until we reach the 50-minute mark, at which time we will move to closing comments. Candidates will have 2 minutes for closing comments. Okay, we're going to get started. Bidal, you're first with opening comments. You have 3 minutes.
I'd like to thank everybody for allowing this opportunity for us to get in front of you guys today and introduce ourselves to make sure that, we're the proper candidate for you. So, good evening and thank you for having me. It's good to see you too, Reed. Okay, we stand at a critical moment in our state. We must determine whether or not we can continue down the path we're on. As a father of 3 and a husband of 16 years, the focus is simple. Lowering taxes for everyone, safer communities, and a brighter future for our children. We must stop the frivolous spending that causes tax hike to keep more hard-earned money in your pocket. As an 11-year law enforcement veteran and as a combat military veteran, I will strive to support law enforcement to ensure they have the tools to protect and guarantee our community is safe. As an individual seeking a higher education, a PhD in criminal justice, I believe it's time to prioritize quality over bureaucracy in our education system and give parents more control over their child's future. When it comes to childcare, we need practical solutions and make it affordable and accessible for all families. I'm dedicated to actively listening to the people's concerns and being a steady voice for Northern Minnesota. I firmly believe in transparency, accountability, and fully prepared to tirelessly earn the votes and trust and support of our constituents. I am the best candidate to represent 2A and drive positive change. I have a clear vision for the future and unwavering passion for the state of Minnesota and especially Northern Minnesota. This is why I'm asking for your vote this November 5th. Together we can build a stronger, more secure, and more prosperous community. Thank you.
Thanks, Bidal. Reed, 3 minutes, opening comments.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers. Good evening, journalists. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Lakeland News, for this opportunity to speak to the district. My name is Reed Olson, and I am running for State House District 2A, and I'm here to ask for your vote. I was born and raised in Litchfield, Minnesota. My family on my father's side has been farming in Minnesota since the 1880s. On my mother's side, we go back even further into Minnesota history. I have ancestors who enlisted in the Minnesota 1st and fought in the Battle of Gettysburg. I moved to the area in 1994 at the age of 18 to work, live, and study at the Concordia language villages. I instantly fell in love with northern Minnesota. My mom recalls telling me that I would like to open a restaurant in Bemidji someday. I would realize that dream about 11 years later when my good friend Moni and I opened up Wild Hair Bistro in 2005. We'll be celebrating our 19th anniversary on Halloween. As a small business owner, I want to make sure that all Minnesotans have a chance to open up their own business if that's what they choose. In 2011, I joined the Greater Bemidji Area Joint Planning Commission. This was a great lesson in local civics. 2 years later, I became a Bemidji City Council member where I served for 4 years before getting elected to the Beltrami County Board, where I served another 6 years. While a council member, I started attending meetings organized by concerned citizens about the uptick in preventable deaths of our unhoused neighbors. And in 2015, we incorporated as a 501c3 and opened up a shelter in 2016. I became the board chair as we incorporated, and then in 2019, the executive director, which I am today. As a city council member and a county commissioner, I have worked on a lot of the challenges that are facing our communities. I know we can't overcome all of these challenges alone. Our cities and counties cannot levy their way out of the problems that we are facing. We, local taxpayers, simply can't afford it. We need statewide solutions to statewide problems. You should vote for me because I will ensure that policy priorities and legislation make sense for rural Minnesota. I will ensure that we see property tax relief by bringing home bonding dollars, something that our current delegation has really failed to do year after year after year. When they talk about tax cuts, they often mean tax cuts for our highest earners and for our corporations. When I talk about it, I mean property tax relief for our district residents. I will be a trusted voice in St. Paul for the district. I will represent our Northwoods values. I will make sure that a Metro-dominated legislature does not leave us behind, but rather invests in our communities and improves our quality of life. My name is Reed Olson, and I ask for your vote. Remember, early voting is already underway, and Election Day is November 5th. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Reed. Our first question will come from Dennis, and Reed, you'll answer first.
All right, thanks, Bethany, and thanks to both of you for being here tonight, kicking off our debates for 2024. We started these up in 1998 and have done them every 2 years here on Lakeland PBS since then, and very pleased to bring these to viewers and give viewers a better look at our candidates. So the first question is, how would you assess the economy in Minnesota right now and your district, and what are your ideas for spurring economy both in the state and within your district?
I think the state of the economy in Minnesota is pretty good. That doesn't mean that all families are experiencing the economic growth that the state is enjoying. I think we need to make some major investments in our state, in our district, to make sure that people can lower their cost of living and improve their quality of life. I think one thing that we need to do is tackle the housing crisis. Homes are really expensive. Rent is really expensive. One of the best ways to bring those prices down is to build more housing. This will also generate jobs. We can have a virtuous economic circle where we have putting people to work to build houses, to house our workforce, and that will spur on economic growth. The other thing we need to tackle is childcare. We know when I was a county commissioner, we did a study for the Bemidji area, and we found that we need an additional 1,000 daycare spots in Bemidji and around Bemidji. And when I go up to Red Lake, when I go to Baudette, to Clearbrook, I hear the same thing, a lack of childcare. We can't have the work participation rate that we want if we don't have childcare. So we need to make these major investments, and I think we'll be able to see our local economy grow quite a bit. Thank you.
I think we could do better with our local economy, the state as well. The reasons why is because we are overburdened with taxes. It is hard for us to grow economically if we're being taxed to the burden of no coming back. We are losing businesses in the state of Minnesota. We are not gaining businesses right now. So we have to start trying to curve the influx of the taxes that are going through. We blew a $17.5 billion surplus to just raise our taxes by $10 billion more dollars. All right. We're the first in the nation for corporate taxes. We're number 6th for individual income taxes. And we're number 17th in the state for sales tax alone. We're at the highest brackets in all brackets in this, for the state of Minnesota here. It's hard for us to grow. It's hard for us to bring in businesses. It's hard for us to bring employment if we can't grow as a society. And we have to remember that businesses create jobs. They are the job creators. If we are taxing them so they are burdened, there is no way for growth. And so we need to develop a way to incentivize businesses in the state of Minnesota to come back and to flourish. And we need to make sure that we have a fair tax bracket across the board. We can do better, and we can do better, and we will do better. Thank you.
Thanks, Bidal. Reed, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, it's something that we hear quite often. We do have higher taxes across overall than many states, but we also have more Fortune 500 companies per capita than any other state in the union. We have the highest, the most productive workforce. We do have high taxes at the top tier, but we have one of the most progressive income taxes in the nation. We take those tax dollars and we invest them in ourselves, we invest them in our infrastructure, in our education, and that's what gives us the productive workforce that companies come here to see. We are a very productive nation, or a very productive state. If what my opponent is saying is true, we would not have all the Fortune 500 companies. They would be elsewhere, but they come here because of the investments that we make in ourselves, the investments we make in our kids, the investments we make in our infrastructure, and that's what grows the jobs that we need. So we take the money and invest in ourselves, and it has worked for us for 50 years, and it'll continue to work for us into the future.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I mean, let's remind everybody that we can't levy or tax our way out of every problem. We have a risk of losing businesses, just like Medtronics. They left the state, and that was a big company here that lost a lot of jobs. So yes, there may be some Fortune 500 companies that are inside the state of Minnesota, but what about the little guy here? And what about our area? So it's what about our district and what we can do for us, right? The Fortune 500 companies are down in the cities. There's a lot of money down there. They can withstand the pressure of this higher tax burden, but not the little guy, not our local businesses. We can do better. We will do better underneath me. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Ashley.
Thank you. This question is for Bidal, I believe.
Yep, Bidal, go first.
So the Bemidji area has had PFAS contamination in its water in the past, with some wells exceeding safe levels. If elected, what steps would you take to address these types of issues and protect our local water resources?
Well, safer waters and safer land environment is a crucial part of us, making a better future for our children, right? So we have to continue to do better at taking care of our lands and water. I don't know the results of the particular issue that you were talking about, but I will prioritize safer waters, safer lands, and safer airs for sure. That we need to focus and prioritize on making a brighter future for our children. Absolutely.
Reed?
The PFAS contamination of our well water here in Bemidji was a result of the flame retardants that we use out at the airport, and we do annual testing and training out there, and that's what saturated the ground with the PFAS. We ended up having the city of Bemidji ended up reaching an agreement with 3M, who helped them, put filters in to be able to filter out. So, and while this was going on, I was a county commissioner. I was serving on the Bemidji area airport board of directors, and during that time, we moved away from the PFAS chemical and moved to a flame retardant that didn't have those PFAS. And so now we corrected it, and so we know that we won't be contaminating the soil. And the state is looking at restrictions. There are some restrictions on PFAS to make sure that they don't get into our groundwater anymore. So that's the great thing about this state, is sometimes we have challenges, we have problems, we identify them, and then we correct them. And this is a great example of Bemidji, the airport, the state, and 3M coming together and finding a solution. So thank you.
Bidal, do you have a rebuttal?
I do not.
Okay, then we will move on to the next question, which will come from Chelsea. Reed, you'll answer first.
What should the legislature do to ensure that Greater Minnesota schools are equitably funded?
Great question, and that's a very important one in our district. We're a very rural district. We don't have the taxing capacity that more urban areas do. For a long time, Minnesota invested in education, K-12 education across the state, and made sure that property taxes wasn't the main way that we were funding education. We've kind of gotten away from that as a state, and now more and more the school districts are responsible for passing levies. Rural districts are having real challenges in getting those referendums passed to increase the funding. And so we need to get back to the model that we used to use. Even back into the 70s, we made major investments. It was called the Minnesota Miracle, where we made sure that a kid's zip code did not determine the quality of education that they were going to receive. Regardless of where you lived, you were going to get a good education. I think that I benefited from that when I went to school as a kid. We need to get back to that where we aren't saddling our property taxpayers in low tax communities with the burden of funding the education. We need to do it at the state level. Again, we have statewide challenges and we need statewide solutions. And when we do that, that will be real tax relief for individuals, for property owners in our district. So I fully support the state funding education to the level that it needs to be so that we can give our property taxpayers a break.
Thanks. Bidal?
Thank you. To better serve our community and better serve our education system, we need to stop with the mandates coming from the state of Minnesota. So there's 80 new mandates that went from 2023 to 2024. All right, it's somewhere around 80 mandates that came down on the schools. Those mandates are costly towards the school district. We have to be careful when we're starting to put mandates. We have to put local control back to our schools, and we need to make sure that we are prioritizing our education over bureaucracy. So transportation sparsity is a big thing here, right? So we have people that are all over the county. We have a very big county here. So we have to pick up kids in a lot of different areas. Now, what is going on right now is we're having to take money out of our general fund and put it in transportation, which down in the cities, they're taking their transportation funds and putting it in the general fund. That is obviously not fair. That's a huge thing we need to overcome. And that is one of the things that I will be working on as soon as I get into legislation. I will work to bring more money up to the schools, but also cut back on the mandates that are actually crippling these schools and making sure that they are not getting overburdened with unfunded mandates that are coming out of their general funds. So we need to start thinking locally for our school districts. We need to start taking care of our teachers. We need to start taking care of the administration there, all right? And we need to start taking care of our children. Thank you.
Reed, do you have a rebuttal?
I'll just add that, yeah, I agree that when we have mandates coming down from the state, as a former county commissioner, there's one thing that we always like to complain about is unfunded mandates from the state. Some of the mandates, I mean, they make good sense and they're important for whether it's safety or a high quality education, but we have to make sure that the school district has the funding that they need. So if the state is going to give a mandate to, if it's new curriculum or new safety measures in the school, that should be backed up with the dollars to be able to fulfill that mandate. Because the goal is quality education, safe schools, and so we need to make sure we're funding it from the state level.
Bidal?
Yes. You know, after speaking with local officials here in our school district, the three things that we can work towards benefiting our schools here is actually preserving local control, no new mandates, and applying strategic funding. That means every single time that the state gives us money, they dictate exactly where that funds have to go, right, with these new mandates. So we need to be careful with that. Again, we need to bring back local control over our schools and not the state of Minnesota. Thank you.
The next question will be from Dennis. Bidal, you'll answer first.
Well, we have asked our viewers to send us questions, and we've gotten a lot of really good questions this year, so I'm going to try to work in at least one viewer question per debate throughout the 4 nights that we do this. The question tonight from our viewer is, I'll just read the question as it is listed. A contentious issue last legislative session that is likely to reappear again in the 2025 session is that of tribal land back bills. Would you support legislation giving state land back to local tribes?
Bidal?
I think we have to be careful with automatically giving money or land back to the reservations because we're losing a lot of economics up in that area. So as of right now, I will not support giving the land back to the reservations. There's so much that is coming into that a lot of people don't understand. Someone from the cities, a legislator down in the cities, introduced a bill up here without speaking with any local officials. If there was any local buy-in, if there was local officials and the community was for it, I think we could have a good communication about that. But as of right now, none of that has happened. So I would disagree with how everything did happen. So I would have to go with a no at this point in time.
Thank you. Reed?
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, this is a matter of public land management. You know, just to be clear, there was a lot of rumors going around about whether or not it was going to be state land or private land. This is the bill was specifically just for the management of public land. I think that when you look at the land back that has happened in the state, it happened down in southern Minnesota, the Lower Sioux, that took over a decade to accomplish. I think that we need to kind of maybe take a step back and look at the land exactly that is being suggested, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with the DNR, with tribal representatives, with good people up in Washkish and the resorts. I believe that public land needs to stay public, so regardless of who is managing it, we will still have public access. So if you hunt and fish up there, if there were to be any kind of management returned to the tribe, you would still be able to hunt and fish there. You know, if you have an easement across land, public land, you would still have that easement. But there's a lot of work to be done. It doesn't just happen with a single bill being drafted. That bill never made it into committee. It didn't really go anywhere last year. I think there's a lot of work to do, a lot of interested parties to talk to, but I think that we can find some kind of amicable agreement, and that's what I look forward to working on once I'm in the legislature.
Bidal, do you have a rebuttal?
I do. Again, we need to bring to everybody's mind that this bill was introduced by someone down in the cities, and it caused a lot of tensions between a lot of people up in that area. So we are sitting back here trying to regain a lot of the relationships that we've had, and we're just because someone down in the cities introduced a bill up here and just dropped it like a grenade and let it blow up. We need to, again, be smart about things, but no one ever discussed any of this stuff before they introduced this bill with anybody in northern Minnesota. This is unprecedented, and I do not agree with how things happen.
Thank you. Reed, rebuttal?
Red Lake Nation is in northern Minnesota, so it's not like they didn't talk to anybody in northern Minnesota. And I would also say that there are plenty of people, cynical politicians, who are ready to take advantage of this and try and stoke fears, knowing that what they were saying was untrue, to try to get people to be upset and afraid. We could have had a lot of really good discussion last spring when this bill came out, but instead people retreated to their corners because they were afraid. So I look forward to having broad discussions with a lot of people, figure out what the best way forward is, and that's what I intend to do.
Thank you. The next question will come from Ashley.
You guys are really good at answering questions. So I guess kind of feedbacking off of the previous question that was asked about land, our region is home to critical tribal resources and lands. How do you plan to collaborate with tribal nations to ensure the protection of these lands and the natural resources they depend on, particularly with threats like industrial pollution and climate change?
Reed, you have this question first.
I think that if you look at the co-management that's been taking place between the Red Lake Nation and the DNR on Upper Red, it's a great example of the state working with their tribal partners to ensure that we have clean water, Up here, we all depend, regardless of where you are in the district, we all depend on clean water and healthy forests. We have a thriving wood products industry. We have a thriving tourist industry, and that all depends on having high quality lakes. It depends on us trying to battle and mitigate invasive aquatic species. I think we're doing a good job. There's always more work to be done. There's more partnerships to be had. But I'm very proud of the work that Beltrami County does with Red Lake, that the state of Minnesota through the DNR does with our tribal partners. I think we have a good ground, a good basis to work from, and I look forward to more partnership and more projects that we do together.
Thank you. Bidal?
Partnerships are always good, right? We have to continue building on partnerships and making sure that partnerships are always flourishing within our community, especially within the district. If elected, I will work hard to establish better communication, work harder to building stronger relationships with the tribal, right? But we need to understand that we have to work together as a group. And when it comes to climate change and taking care of our lands and make sure we have clean water, we all have to do our parts in this. So let's not look the other way when it comes to making sure that we are all doing our little part to add into this big puzzle piece. Now, relationships again are some of the most crucial things that we can build on, and we have to build on them, and I will build on them. Thank you.
Reed, rebuttal?
Yeah, I'll just say, I am very proud to have been endorsed by the Red Lake Nation, and I enjoy a very good relationship with the Tribal Council, something that my opponent probably will never have. I've worked with them already. We've worked on housing issues together. We've worked on homelessness issues together. I'm ready to do more work with them, to partner with them where we have similar goals and work forward on that. So I'm already there. I'm already doing it. And I look forward to doing it more once I get down to St. Paul.
Bidal, rebuttal?
Yeah, absolutely. If the relationship needs to be mended or needs to be built, I hope that once I'm elected, that Reed would actually help me build on that relationship if he truly believes in making sure that we're all part of a community. So I look forward to working with Reed and some of the other individuals in the future to make sure that we all have a better relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question comes from Chelsea, and Bidal, you'll answer first.
Rural ambulance services received $24 million in one-time emergency aid in the most recent legislative session. It is widely acknowledged this is a Band-Aid and systemic change is needed to support rural EMS. What changes do you propose to support rural EMS for the foreseeable future?
Well, being a first responder, it is crucial to have everybody understand that we have to support our first responders first and most important thing. When we support our first responders, we're going to get more out of them, right? When we give them the resources, when we give them everything they need to be successful in their job is crucial to their ability to help out our community. So bringing in and resources is something that I want to do for all first responders, but obviously the ambulance service is making sure that we're getting to people in a timely manner, safe. Yes, when I was working in law enforcement, there'd be times where we'd be waiting for a very long time for an ambulance to show up. We need to bring more resources up here to be able to alleviate a lot of that stress on our first responders. Now, that goes with all first responders. Bringing up more resources, money, if that's what it takes, but just allowing for us to show our support is going to be more crucial for anything. So, thank you.
Reed?
Yeah, as the director of 2 homeless shelters in Bemidji, I work with a demographic, a population that has really high needs, and we work hand in glove with first responders all the time, responding to people in crisis. And that's in Bemidji, where we have a little more population, a little more resources. So, you imagine living in Washkish or living in Williams and Lake of the Woods or in Gonvick, people are sometimes, as Bidal said, waiting too long for responses because we just don't have the capacity in rural Minnesota, in some parts of rural Minnesota. So we do need to invest in our emergency responders, in our ambulances. It's critical infrastructure, and it doesn't matter if you live in a big city or in the middle of nowhere. You need to be able to have those services. So I support increased funding, not just one-time dollars, but ongoing funding to make sure that all Minnesotans, regardless of where they live, can know that they're going to get the response that they need if they or one of their loved ones is in crisis or is injured. So this is just basic infrastructure, I think, for any healthy community, any healthy state. So more funding, I will support all the way. Thank you.
Bidal, do you have a rebuttal?
Yeah, I do. I will support extra funding for first responders for sure. One of the things we have to change is the actual incentivizing people to actually get into these programs as well. So we need firefighters, we need ambulance, we need cops. They all work really close together. We need to change the mindset in regards to first responders to incentivize more people to actually join these programs so we can get more people out there. So we have to look at, obviously, pay, resources, everything has to come into effect with that. So yes, I will support anything to help out first responders. Thank you.
Reed?
Yeah, I don't disagree. We do need to invest in that's the case with first responders, and you could go all through our healthcare system in rural Minnesota, where we really need to invest in people and try and find incentives to get people to come to rural Minnesota to work, live, and play. And so we need to invest in. I don't know if there's a variety of things that we can do. If we help people pay off their student loans, if they have student loans, if they come back and work in a rural setting. But there's a lot of things that we can do, and we just have to, use our imagination to figure out different ways that we can fix this challenge. But I think that we can. So,
thank you. Next question from Dennis.
All right, thanks, Bethany. Here's a topic that came up in the vice presidential debate and generated some national attention. How do you feel about the current abortion laws as they are written in Minnesota, and would you advocate for any changes at all?
Reed, you have this one first.
I will continue to support access to reproductive health care. Full stop. This is a matter of personal freedom. This is a matter of health. I don't see anything that we need to change with Minnesota's laws. We have some of the most robust protections for people seeking reproductive care. We have seen what happens in Republican-controlled states, and I'm not going to let that happen in Minnesota. We are not going to let people risk their lives because a doctor is afraid they're going to go to jail if they treat a person in crisis. We've seen this happen too many times now in other states. Minnesota is a beacon. None of the states around us have near the access to health care that Minnesota has, and I will continue to support that absolutely 100%, and just know that the day that Minnesota is ran by the Republicans, that these freedoms, this access will absolutely disappear. I will continue to fight to make sure that people have access to the health care that they need.
Bidal?
Yep. First off, I would like to let everybody know that I am pro-life. And, however, I do believe there are instances where we should consider the situation, which is protect a mother's life, rape, and incest. Those are the three stipulations I believe in. But I believe we have to have empathy when it comes to these issues. I feel someone who has encountered an unwanted pregnancy, we have to empathize with them, and we have to figure out some other ways to be able to show them that there's other options, right? So, as a state representative, I would look at more preventative measures for unwanted pregnancies, so we can, incentivize individuals and families to think of other options. But to this, we should look at other options, and I think we need to be better at preventative care as well. Thank you.
Reed, do you have a rebuttal?
Yeah, I don't think that either of us should be in the business of deciding what's best for you. I think, and to just talk about unwanted pregnancies, that is not the only time when people seek abortions. It's a medical procedure that people need to do. Oftentimes people that want to carry that pregnancy to term. And so we have to make sure that people can access the health care that they need when they need it, and not worry about Bidal and I moralizing the issue or trying to make decisions for people. So I will always support your right to access the health care that you need. Full stop.
Bidal. Okay, thank you. The next question will come from Ashley.
Thank you so much. So there has been a lot of issues surrounding opioid use disorder in our community, and it seems to only be getting worse, unfortunately, and it's disproportionately affecting our Native population. If elected, do you have any plans to address the opioid crisis here in our community?
Bidal, you get this one first.
All right. Having been in law enforcement for 11 years, I know this firsthand. And this is one of the biggest issues we are struggling with in our communities. But we can't continue to throw money down this issue. We actually have to get to the root cause. And the root cause is the actual addiction itself. You know, but we also have to look at the people bringing up the actual opioids and tougher crimes on the traffickers, drug traffickers, and making sure that they are keeping good sentences by the DOC, right? So what's happening right now is that these individuals are transporting narcotics to our area, and then they're getting a lesser sentence when this poison that is in our area is destroying our community, and all they do is bring it up here and go back home. We need to be able to give the resources to law enforcement to be able to combat this as much as possible. We have been recently, you know, for HIDA, we were just, so the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy recently announced the designation of Beltrami County as a high-intensity drug trafficking area. This is a problem, and we need to work closely with our community members to make sure that we're protecting them the best we can. And so this is a great start for us to give the resources to the law enforcement to be able to combat the drug trafficking, but also we need to focus on the victims of this drug crime as well. This drug actually, you know, grabs a hold of people, and it's very hard to get off of. And we need to make sure that we have the resources up here to be able to help with that. And those resources have to come through the state, local people, but also nonprofits. We have to be able to combine our efforts as a community to make this problem go away. Thank you.
Reed?
I work with people that are struggling with substance use disorder every day. And I am on the front lines of that fight. We desperately need to have more access to treatment in rural Minnesota. This is something that we come into all the time, where someone really wants to go to treatment and we can't find a bed. And sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes it takes months. And when you have someone with a crippling addiction like an opioid addiction or a meth addiction, you need to get them into treatment when they are ready to go. And if you wait too long, then that window expires, and then they're going to go back to drug use, oftentimes feeling left behind and that nobody cares about them, and so it can actually be really damaging. So we do need to invest in treatment. I agree. We don't produce methamphetamines in our district. We don't produce opioids. We don't produce fentanyl, but it's coming in droves. So we have to make sure that our cops are properly trained, because when we don't do things by the law, by the letter of the law, then bad guys can go free. We might have read some articles recently about some bad guys down in Hubbard County that went unprosecuted because the officer that arrested them wasn't able to follow the law, violated their Fourth Amendment rights, and then they were let to go after bringing pounds of methamphetamines into our community. So we need to make sure that cops have the training that they need. We need to make sure that we have the treatment options for our people so that we can get them the help we need. And I think that also investing in housing, investing in education, making our healthy communities do not seek drugs. So we have to do a lot of work to try to make sure that that our people are living good lives and don't need to turn to drugs. Thank you.
Bidal, do you have a rebuttal?
Yeah, drug addiction is a thing that I can only understand. I've never been in that environment. So when we're talking about the resources and everything we need, we have to actually talk with the people who are actually dealing with the individuals who are suffering with an addiction. So we have to coordinate with those people to understand the actual addiction. And we have to get to the front lines, and we have to understand what we can do, what resources we can bring to our community to help these people out. You know, there's a trickling effect to all this stuff, right? So when we have someone addicted to an opioid, it's so damaging to their life that it actually affects everybody else around them as well. So this is a community event. We all have to come together, but we have to bring up the resources, and we got to make sure that we're benefiting these individuals, just not throwing money at the issue. We actually have to get to the root cause of this addiction. Thank you.
Reed?
I agree that we need more investments. You know, I can't stress enough how important it is to have more treatment options. Getting more beds is probably one of the single best things we can do to help people. And I have seen too many people die in the 10 years that I've been working on housing and homelessness issues. Way too many people that I've gotten to know, people that I love. I see the devastation that it brings to their families that are trying to help them. And this is a very serious problem. And again, I just want to stress, we don't create the drugs, they get brought here, and we have to make sure that we are empowering law enforcement to keep them from coming in, but then also trying to stem the appetite in our communities for these vicious substances.
The next question comes from Chelsea.
Minnesotans will be asked a ballot question this year to extend the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, which takes proceeds from the Minnesota State Lottery system to support projects and activities to protect, conserve, and preserve the state's natural resources. Do you or do you not support the extension of this fund? Please explain why.
You get this one first.
Yep, I absolutely support the extension of this fund. Again, as I said earlier, we are a district that relies on our natural resources for tourism and for commerce. So we need to do everything we can. These dollars really help fund some great projects that really help improve our natural resource management. So I fully support it, and I think it's great. I mean, it really sets us apart from other states, the fact that we have this, and I'll continue to support it.
Bidal?
This new law is going to extend it to 25 years instead of the 10 that it's going at right now. So we need to be careful with extending this time frame as long as possible, because we don't know what's going to happen in between there, right? So it's already mandating this money's into this pool for 25 years. So as of right now, I would not support this bill just because of all the issues and all the unknowns that come with this, plus the length of time that would be with this. So no, I would not support it.
Reed, do you have a rebuttal?
I'll just say very quickly, our district is nothing without our forests and our lakes.
Bidal, do you have a rebuttal?
Oh, supporting it, I mean, supporting our lakes and our forests and everything else is huge, because we are northern Minnesota, right? But dictating exactly where those funds are going to for the next 25 years is a worrisome for a lot of individuals. So we need to be cautious on what we're doing for that length of time. Thank you.
The next question comes from Dennis, and Bidal, you'll answer first.
What do you feel is the best approach to curbing gun violence in this state?
Holding criminals accountable. So, I mean, right now what we have is we have a society that it wants to blame the guns instead of the actual issue itself, which is the people. We need to start holding criminals accountable for their actions. It's plain and simple. You can't get any cleaner than this. We have gun laws on the books that are very good right now, that as long as we hold criminals accountable for their actions, we will start to see this curve. You know, right now down in the cities, what do we have? We have, gunshots almost every single day, but when these individuals get caught, they end up getting released right away. You know, so it's the prosecution, it's judges, it's the whole system that needs to start holding these people accountable. And right now we're just not seeing it how we should. And I think we do a fairly good job up here of holding people accountable, but we also have the Department of Corrections that are lenient on individuals when they shouldn't be. So we need to start holding the Department of Corrections accountable for allowing these individuals to get out sooner than they should be. You know, so holding criminals accountable is the easiest, quickest way to curb gun violence. We need to be tougher on the criminals. Thank you.
Reed?
We can only hold criminals accountable after they commit a violent act. I believe that the number one cause of death amongst our youth in America is gun violence. Up here in the Northwoods, we have a different relationship with guns than maybe in the metro. You know, I'm a gun owner. I hunt. I like to shoot pop cans with my little .22 pistol, and I do so responsibly. And a lot of us do. Most of us do up here. But I do support like red flag laws to make sure that people that maybe have a violent history or something like that aren't able to get to guns and to commit. So there is prevention that we can do. It's not all just waiting for a crime to happen and then punishing the person, which I don't disagree with when it comes to violent crime. But there are things that we can do to be preventative and to make sure that people that shouldn't have guns don't get to them. I believe in closing the loophole on gun shows, making sure that everybody has to pass a background check before they can get a gun, because there are some people that shouldn't have them, and we need to make sure that they're not getting them.
Bidal, do you have a rebuttal?
I do. You know, just throwing out a couple stats here, and you know, 2022 nationwide, 1,674 children were murdered by firearms. 686 were suicides, 117 were accidental, 66 were undetermined. That's 2,543 children that have died from firearms. 2,883 teenagers ages 13 to 19 died in car crashes in 2022. In 2022, 129 children under the age of 14 died in car crashes as well. So I think we need to look at the actual numbers to make sure that we're doing the proper legislation, right? So holding criminals accountable is what's going to make this happen. Thank you.
Reed, rebuttal?
Yeah, it's a lot of kids, and we should do everything we can to try to minimize gun violence.
Okay, we're going to conclude our question portion. We're going to move into closing comments. You each have 2 minutes for closing comments. Reed, you're going to open with your closing comments first.
All right, well, I want to thank the viewers for tuning in tonight. I want to thank the journalists for your great questions, and thank you, Bidal, for being here as well. I think we had a really good discussion, and I think that the difference between the two of us couldn't be more clear. My priority is to improve the lives for working families. We need more housing to increase. We need to build more housing to increase the supply and bring down the cost. This will also house our growing workforce in our district and create good paying jobs in our communities. We need more affordable and accessible quality childcare. With that, we can increase our workforce participation rate and grow our local economies. We need access to health care, especially specialized health care such as birthing facilities, elder care, and mental health care throughout our rural district. I am the experienced choice for the good people of District 2A. I will have to make difficult decisions in St. Paul. Everybody does that is in the legislature. As a business owner for nearly 2 decades, I've known the challenges of small businesses, and I've had to make the tough choices of sometimes going out without pay myself so I can make sure I can meet payroll for my employees. As a council member and a county commissioner, I've had to make difficult decisions as well. But because I listen to experts, because I listen to the staff, and most importantly, because I listen to my constituents, I have been able to make the right decision on many topics to help move our community forward. I have the background and experience to represent our communities in St. Paul. Also, I already have experience advocating for our communities, and I have relationships with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers of the legislature. I love this district. I love the people. I love to hunt and fish. I love camping and hiking. I am an authentic representative of our Northwoods values of hard work, personal freedom, love of our natural resources, and privacy. I will be a trusted voice in St. Paul. I will represent our Northwoods values. I will make sure that the Metro-dominated legislature will not leave us behind, but will invest in our communities and improve our quality of life. Vote early or vote on Election Day, but please vote for me, Reed Olson. Thank you very much.
Bidal.
My focus is simple: lowering taxes for everyone, safer communities, and a brighter future for our children. It can't get any simpler than that. There's a lot of things that are coming into here. With a Democratic trifecta, there was a $17.5 billion surplus that was blown, and then a $10 billion taxes and fees that were introduced as well during this time. That was under the Democratic trifecta. You know, and one of my what my opponent here hasn't told you is that he's one of 7 candidates for an ultra progressive caucus, the DFL caucus here. He's one of 7 people out of 134 that are associated with this. That's an Ilhan Omar caucus. And that does not represent northern Minnesota. That does not represent us up here. That continues the frivolous spending, the tax hikes, and less money inside your pockets. You know, being a law enforcement veteran and a military veteran, I'm going to support our law enforcement and first responders. I'm going to support our military veterans. I'm going to make sure that our community is safe. It's one of the biggest things that I've encountered when I've been door knocking is the safety of our community and the high theft that's going on as well in our community. We need to bring back some safety and security to our community. And that goes all the way up to Baudette, Williams, Clearbrook, Gonvick, the whole district. We need to make sure that we're protecting our citizens. And I will support those first responders, support our community members, and make sure that they get all the resources they need so we can thrive. We need to incentivize businesses to make sure come into our community as well. We need to make sure they're not getting overburdened with taxes, that they can thrive, to build jobs, to create a better environment for everybody here. I am Bidal Duran, and I'm running for District 2A, and I wish for your vote on November 5th. Thank you very much.
Bidal, Reed, thank you both for participating in tonight's debate. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you for watching. If you missed any portion of tonight's debate or would like to watch it again, it will be available on the Lakeland PBS website within 24 hours. That website is lptv.org. To learn more about the local candidates on the ballot this election season, visit bemidjipioneer.com or pick up a copy of the Bemidji Pioneer Voter's Guide, which will be mailed to subscribers in the October 26th newspaper. The digital voter's guide and all online local election stories are free to readers regardless of subscription status. You can hear the Up North Report newscast on 91.7 KAXE, 90.5 KBXE, and 89.9 in Brainerd, or on your favorite podcast app. Find more local news and election coverage at kaxe.org. and follow KAXE/KBXE on Facebook and Instagram. Now, don't go too far. Coming up in just a few minutes, starting at 8 p.m., we'll have the House District 2B debate with Representative Matt Bliss and candidate Michael Reyes. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned.